Hey everybody, and welcome to Klein's Nursery. I am standing in front of the Klein's home, and I am just going to be adding a beautiful little shrub right here in this little pocket where there's a little bit of space available. And as I'm doing this, I want to talk to you about why I'm digging a certain depth and a certain width, and the things that I'm going to be adding into the soil to ensure that there is a lot of nutrients and a lot of comfort for those little baby roots that are just going to be growing. Let's get this good pine straw out of the way before we start digging. Okay, I'm struggling with deciding between this Elysium or this Duke Gardens U. So I'm going to pop each into this spot and step away and kind of see how I feel about it. I think for this spot, although normally I love a lot of contrast, and that Elysium is definitely providing it, there's no other color over here that would be duplicated in the landscape along with that. So I think I'm going to go with the Duke Gardens. This is going to go 3 to 4 feet tall. It's going to get pretty wide, maybe 5 to 6 feet wide. So I think this is a good spot for this to grow in. I've got a little trick for y'all. I like to use the empty pot as a way to hold on to all of this excess soil that I'm bringing out. Let's take a close look. Firstly, I want to make sure that this is not planted at soil level. I want my pot sticking up a little bit above the soil to make sure that no water can get in and pull around the trunk of this and cause it to rot, especially over the winter when there's not high enough evaporation rates to dry out the ground in between raining. I can use my shovel as a rough estimate to see if this is about the right height, and I kind of like where it's landing, but the true test is just going to be to pop it in there and make sure it's not sitting too low. And I am loving the depth. Now, you don't want to dig it too deep because even if you backfill it with enough soil later on, it's still going to settle and it could be lower than you initially intended to. So now we know that this is the right depth, but this is not wide enough. So I'm going to take a moment and just make this a bit wider than I need it. And then later I will use this to backfill it in. The reason that I'm taking care to make this twice as wide as the plant is because most of the time in a new area, you're dealing with compact clay soil. Obviously, we don't have too much clay right here. A lot of organic matter has broken down and returned a lot of nutrients to the soil, turning it this beautiful color. However, there's still clay in here and it can become compacted. And so wherever you're gardening, it is always a good idea to dig your hole wide, and then you're going to break up everything that you're about to backfill with so that you have nice, loose, and broken up soil for these little baby roots to be able to penetrate and start spreading out so that they can grab nutrients and grab water. Well, folks, this is the exact moment that my microphone decided to die. And so the genius way that I just explained everything is forever lost to humanity. But I promise I'm not going to abandon you. I will do my best to recover all the informative things that I just said. Here I'm using Biotone fertilizer, which is the fertilizer I use every single time that I plant anything, whether it's an annual, a perennial, a shrub, a tree, or vegetables in my garden. Biotone is specifically formulated for root development. Now, this is not the time that we want to be fertilizing our plants because we're not trying to push new growth at the top of the plant right now. We're not that far away from winter, and if you have new tender growth right before a frost or a freeze, then we're going to have a very unhealthy looking plant where those tender little new growths got scorched by the cold. Here I am showing off some lovely Black Wonder 5000. I love this to put in the soil to add some nutrients and also break up the texture of hard red clay. We're all in North Carolina here. We all cuss the red clay, even though, hear me out, red clay has its benefits. And actually, I have fallen in love with it a lot. But it's very typical to add something to the soil so that we can break up that hard texture so that we don't have roots fighting to break through. However, if you're going to add something to your soil, I want you to mix it in so that you cannot tell where the red clay started and your compost stops. And the reason is because we don't want two different layers of absorption happening. You can accidentally create something called the bathtub effect if you've got too much compost sitting on top of red clay. So whatever you do, mix it, mix it, mix it.
Now, as you can see from this area here, we're not really dealing with pure virgin red clay. This area has been a garden with a lot of mulch over the years, and that naturally breaks down and adds organic material back into the ground, which, by the way, is another great reason to use mulch. If you're not using mulch, I suggest you start. But if you are dealing with really, really hard red clay, I've got a tip for you. You could use pine bark fines as an additive into your native red clay, and it's not only going to add nutrients as that pine bark begins to break down, but it's going to completely change the texture of your red clay, therefore making it easier for you to work with, but also making it easier for young roots to be able to start to spread out. And as you can see here, I've got the plant in the ground. It's backfilled with that beautiful native soil mixed with a little bit of biotone and compost, and now I've pushed my pine straw back around the plant. If you guys aren't using mulch, I beg you, start using mulch and see what it can do for your garden. First, it just looks tidy. It is a pristine finish to the hard work you've already done. Second, it's going to insulate the roots, so it'll keep it nice and cool during the hot summer months, and it'll also protect it from dieback over the winter when we have some really cold weather. Also, in the summer months when it's really hot, it's going to stop the high evaporation rates, so you won't have to be watering your garden quite so often. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, this acts as a weed barrier. If we create a hostile environment for seeds to germinate by making it very difficult for it to reach the ground and also keeping sunlight out, you're not going to be weeding nearly as much. You're going to save your back, save your hands, and save yourself a lot of time. Thank you guys for joining in, and thank you for sticking around during the chaos of this voiceover. We love having your interaction here on all of our social media accounts, and we can't wait to see you next time.